por TelevisaUnivision, en el que podrán preguntarle directamente a los candidatos a la presidencia de Estados Unidos y así decidir por quién votar. Empleo, salud, inmigración, seguridad, educación y cambio climático, entre otros temas. Los latinos preguntan. Donald Trump responde.
Mr. President, welcome, bienvenido. It's great to see you again, sir. Thank you so much. Your microphone's on.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's great to see you back here in Univision. Thank you so much for doing this. Muchas gracias por
Well,
eso.
this is an honor, and I've never been my own host before, because today we're going to sort of be together for almost an hour, and I look forward to it. We've done really well with the Hispanic people, as you know. No Republican has ever done like this, and most people haven't, but I've had a great relationship. We've created a lot of jobs, and I think the numbers have broken every record, and I want to keep it that way, so we're going to have a good time today. Just very special people, brilliant, energetic, and somehow it just, they've attracted to me, I've attracted to them, and we look forward to having a big win. We're going to create a lot of jobs. We create jobs. That's what I do. Right next door, I own Doral, and a lot of you have seen that. A lot of you are from the area, and that's been a big success. We have tremendous numbers of Hispanic people going there and working there. So we're going to see what you have to say, and we're going to answer some questions. Hopefully they'll be very extremely easy questions, but I look forward to being with you for a little while. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome. Wonderful. Y bienvenidos a todos a esta noche histórica en donde los latinos, votantes elegidos por una empresa independiente y convocados por Noticias Univision, podrán preguntarle al candidato republicano a la presidencia, Donald J. Trump, en este encuentro de nuevo histórico. Our first question comes from Diana Rodriguez. She's been here for, the first time she voted was 16 years ago when she became an American citizen. Diana, tu pregunta, bienvenida, buenas noches.
Señor presidente Trump, buenas noches. El alto costo de la vida está muy alto.
Good evening, Mr. President. The cost of living is very high.
Antes una familia como la mía comprábamos $200 a la semana en comida. Ahora está en 350 y sigue subiendo.
A family like mine used to spend $200 approximately weekly for groceries. Nowadays, we're spending over $350, and that's increasing.
¿Qué piensa cambiar para mejorar la economía del país, especialmente para personas como yo?
What are you planning to change to improve the economy of this country, especially for people like myself?
Well, thank you very much. Look, this is a problem caused by this administration. 4 years ago, you had no inflation. Now you have record-setting inflation. What they've done to this country is incredible in so many different ways, incredibly bad. We have people complaining about groceries, about prices, about rent, about everything. Interest rates went from 2% to 10%, and you can't get the money. You want to buy a house, you can't buy a house anymore. You can't do anything. But the biggest thing I hear about is just what you said, groceries, the food. So we didn't have inflation. We had a great situation for everything, for virtually everything. When they came in, they spent, and they also blew my energy policies up. So we had inexpensive energy. Now you have the most expensive thing on the list is energy. That is such a big category that it leads to everything. Everything else follows. Everything follows energy. We have more liquid gold under our feet than anybody else. There's no other country that has liquid gold like we do. That's oil and gas. We're going to bring your energy costs down, and with your energy costs, everything is going to come down. We're going to also make jobs available so you can afford, literally, much easier. We're going to have many more jobs than we have right now. We set a record. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. Now we have a lousy economy, primarily because of inflation. So we're going to get rid of the inflation. We're going to drill, baby, drill. I'm going to get your energy costs down by 50%, 50% over the course of 12 months, which will be easy to do because we have more energy than Saudi Arabia. We have more energy than Russia, anybody. We were energy independent just 4 years ago, and now look at us. So energy is going to bring it down, and the spending is going to bring it down. We're going to cut a lot of waste and abuse that won't affect anybody other than our bottom line as a country. And you're going to be in great shape. You just hang in there. We're going to bring those costs way down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you, Diana. Muchas gracias. President Trump, as you know,
thank you.
Farming is one of the most demanding jobs, and farmers like Jorge Velázquez over here work hard to put food on the table of American families. He has a question for you. Jorge Velázquez es agricultor y tiene una pregunta
Good
para
hair, yeah, by the way. Nice hair.
Expresidente.
Look at that.
Buenas noches, señor presidente Trump. He trabajado toda mi vida con estas manos, agachado por horas, piscando fresa, cortando brócoli.
Good evening, President Trump. For many years, I have worked with these hands, hunched over, picking strawberries and cutting broccoli.
Este duro trabajo es realizado en su mayoría por gente indocumentada.
This tough job is mainly done by undocumented people.
Si usted deporta a esta gente, ¿quién haría ese trabajo y qué precio pagaríamos por la comida?
If you deport these people, who would do that job and what price would we pay for food?
Please. Finished, yes?
Yes.
So the problem we have is we had people coming in under my administration, and they were coming in legally. They were coming in through a system that we had, which was great, because I'm the best thing that ever happened to farmers. You know that. I was great. You know, farmers are doing very badly right now, very, very badly under this administration. Under my administration, farmers did very well. We have to have a lot of people come into our country. We just want them to come in legally through a system, because they've released hundreds of thousands of people that are murderers, drug dealers, terrorists. They're coming in totally, nobody knows who they are, where they come from. And the people that are most against it are the Hispanic people. They are totally against it, what's happened. The other thing I can say is that a lot of the jobs that you have and that other people have are being taken by these people that are coming in. And the African-American population and the Hispanic population in particular are losing jobs now because millions of people are coming in. So they're coming in, but they're also coming in largely, and tremendous numbers coming in out of mental institutions. They're emptying out mental institutions. They're emptying out insane asylums. That's a step above a mental institution. Worse, bigger problems, bigger problem people. They're emptying out jails. Their jails are being let into our country from Venezuela, but not just South America. From all over the world, they're being let in. From jails, from nobody's ever seen anything like it. The jail population throughout the world has come way down, and it's all coming into the United States of America. So we want workers, and we want them to come in, but they have to come in legally. They have to love our country. They have to love you, love our people. The problem with this administration is they've totally lost control. It's the worst president and the worst vice president that we've ever had in this country. What they have done to our country in terms of hurting it. Our farmers, by the way, are dying. They haven't had anything so bad in 25 years. 4 years ago, our farmers, including you, were making a lot of money. They were doing great. Now they're absolutely dying. We're going to turn it around. But we want people to come in, but we don't want murderers. So it was just announced that last month by the Border Patrol that under Biden and Harris, they allowed 13,099 convicted murderers, people in jail, to come into our country. They released them from jail into our population. And nobody wants that. And that doesn't include the terrorists and all of the others, the gang members, MS-13 gang members, and other gang members. We have to have people that are great people come into our country, but we do want them in, and I want them in even more than you do. And we're going to make it so that people can come into our country legally. Thank you. Good question. Thank you.
Gracias por la pregunta. Thank you, President Trump. Our next question comes from Daniel Perez. Daniel is the first member of his family to have a college degree. Now he's worried about finding the right job, one that is relevant to his area of study. Daniel Pérez, el primero en graduarse de la universidad en su familia. Platícanos de tu pregunta, Daniel.
Good evening, Mr. President. As a first-generation college graduate, I had to work multiple jobs while studying full-time. The reason that being is because my family could not provide financial assistance while I was attending college. The high cost of housing led me to sleep in my car while I was attending college in a rural area. Despite my degree, I'm currently working as a delivery driver. My question to you is, how do you plan to create real job opportunities for recent graduates like myself?
It's a great question, and a lot of people ask that question because the job opportunities, the good ones, are not there under this administration. We are going to bring companies in through a system of taxes, positive, we call it positive taxation. We are going to bring companies in at a level that you've never seen in this country before. I was doing it in my administration, and then what we did, and nobody's ever seen what we're doing. A combination of taxes, tariffs, and incentives. Companies are going to be coming into our country, car companies, and many, that's for the manufacture of cars. They'll be flowing into our country like never before. You need jobs, and that's what you have to do. Again, we also have to get prices down. When prices come down, companies will be able to afford to open up again. A lot of companies over the last 3 years, 3.5 years, have closed up. Companies that would have hired you are not even here anymore. We have had a terrible president and vice president in terms of keeping small businesses going. We want small businesses, which are very, very important. It's actually, they employ more, they are bigger than big businesses as a whole, and we want them taken care of. But we're going to bring companies back into our country. We've lost so many companies back into our country at a level that we haven't seen before, and you're going to get a lot of jobs. You're not going to be looking at one job. You're going to be looking at a job that you want, because you don't want to just take a job. You want to take a job that's a job. I want to be with that company for 25 years or longer, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to have your choice. Right now, you're going around. You can just get a job even if you don't want it. You need it. You're going to have your choice very soon. If I'm elected president, you're going to have a choice between lots of different companies, and you'll match it out with pay and with really very important, just as important as pay, is you have to love what you're doing. If you don't love what you're doing, having a job is brutal. So congratulations on your degree. That's a big achievement. That really is a great thing. It's great that you did it. You will put that to use very soon when I'm elected president. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, and congratulations on that degree. Our next question comes from Natalie Martinez. She's 21 years old. She lives here in South Florida with her family. Natalie Martinez, 21 años. Vive aquí en el sur de la Florida con su familia. Adelante, Natalie.
Hola, expresidente Trump. Soy una estudiante universitaria.
Hello, President Trump. I am in university.
Participé en una competencia sobre la deuda nacional y por eso me preocupa mucho.
I participated recently on a competition on the national debt, and that has gotten me very worried.
La deuda nacional ya está en $35 trillion y no para.
The national debt right now is $35 trillion, and it does not stop there.
Mi pregunta para ustedes, ¿qué haría su administración para reducirla, junto con el interés que pagamos para la deuda?
My question for you tonight is, what will you do to improve it, to reduce the debt, and also to pay alongside its interests?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good question. So we do. We have record national debt. We've never had anything like it before. We were getting ready to start paying down debt, and then we got hit with a thing called COVID, or the China virus, and that had to be the focus, and we needed to help businesses stay in business. And if we didn't do the job we did, Linda McMahon did a great job, Small Business Association. If we didn't do the job that we did, you wouldn't have any companies, right? You would have been in a depression like in 1929. And we did a great job in keeping it all going. We ended up where the stocks were higher, despite all of the COVID, China virus that came into our country. The stocks, when I handed over, the stocks were higher than they were previous to the COVID coming in. So we had to focus on that, obviously, but we had the best economy that we've ever had. We're going to have that again. What's going to solve the problem is growth. It's a thing called growth that nobody even talks about from the Democrat standpoint because they don't know about growth. But we're going to bring companies in. We're going to bring tremendous business to our country. And that's going to solve that. Also, waste, fraud, and abuse. And we have Elon Musk, who's a fantastic guy and a fantastic genius. He's a genius at a lot of things, but he's a great business person also, in addition to sending rockets. You saw his rocket come down the other day and land. The way it landed was so incredible. Nobody had ever seen anything like that. But Elon called me and spent a lot of time. He endorsed me, totally endorsed. He said, if Trump doesn't win, our country may be finished. That's a pretty strong endorsement from a truly brilliant guy. But we're putting him in charge. He wants to do this so badly of cost cutting, bringing costs down so that it won't affect the people, but the waste and abuse in this country, the fraud in this country is massive. And he and his team are going to work on that. We're going to get it down. We're going to start paying off debt. But the key is growth. We have to grow the country, keep the debt the same, and then bring it down and grow the country, and we'll be stronger than ever. You elect me president, we're going to be stronger than ever. That's what I do. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you, Natalie. President Trump, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more questions from undecided Latino voters. Una breve pausa, ya regresamos con más de este encuentro. Los latinos preguntan, Donald Trump responde.
Los latinos preguntan, Donald Trump responde.
Estamos de regreso en este encuentro histórico entre votantes latinos y el expresidente Donald Trump. And we're back, President Trump. Our next question comes from Guadalupe Ramirez. She's a mother of 3. Her parents were born in Mexico and benefited from the Bracero program in the 1980s and became citizens. Adelante con tu pregunta, Guadalupe, madre de 3. Tus padres se beneficiaron del programa Bracero.
Sí, un poquito antes de los 80s, un par de décadas antes.
Before the 80s then.
Buenas noches, señor expresidente. Yo vivo en los suburbios de Chicago y a diario yo veo las consecuencias del flujo migratorio que ha ocurrido en estos últimos años.
Good evening, Mr. President. I live in the suburbs of Chicago. Daily, I see the consequences of the migration flow.
¿Cuál es su plan para una reforma migratoria?
What is your plan for an immigration reform?
Y quisiera preguntarle, ¿por qué usó su influencia sobre los legisladores republicanos para que no respaldaran la propuesta que hubiese brindado refuerzos a la frontera?
And I also would like to ask you why you used your influence to ask the Republican legislators to not back up the strengthening of our border through the proposal.
You like strong borders, so do I, and we have them. We had the strongest border we've ever had in the recorded history of our country. We had, 4 years ago, we had a border that was great. And again, people were coming in, but they were coming in through a legal process. They were great people coming into our country. And when you say Chicago, immediately we have to think about the crime because it's so dangerous in Chicago. And some of these people came from other countries. Many of them came from other countries. So what we're going to do is we have to be much tougher on crime. The Democrats are weak. Don't forget, the Democrats run Chicago. They have a mayor from Chicago. He's terrible. They have a governor who's horrible, Pritzker. He's a horrible governor. That's the state of Illinois. He's horrible. And they're very weak on crime. You want to make sure that you're not attacked, you're not mugged, you're not shot. Chicago's a very dangerous city right now. It's a great city potentially, but right now it's a very dangerous city. And we're working on that, but we have Democrats running it. Everything the Democrats run is bad. 25 cities, they're all run by Democrats, and they're crime-ridden and crime-infested cities. The Republicans running, they don't have the same problem because we have law and order. We have it the way you need it. You need to be safe. You want to walk across the street for a loaf of bread, you want to be able to walk and not get shot or not get mugged or anything else. So we're going to bring that back. I'm bringing a lot back to help the Democrat mayors, where they have them, run their cities better because they can't run their cities. They're crime infested, and Chicago's an example of it. And we're going to make it good. As far as the border, we want to have a strong border, and we want people to come in. And that's what we had. Remember, we had the strongest border in history, and we had the best economy in history. 2 things I had. And I said, that's pretty good. We also got into no wars. I didn't get into any wars. I'm the first president in 84 years that never got into a war, but I beat ISIS. And we beat them in 2 months instead of, I guess they told me it was going to take years, like 5 years. I did it in 2 months. Our military is incredible. I rebuilt the military. But remember these 2 things. I had the strongest border in the history of our country and had the best economy in the history of our country. And I had no inflation. No inflation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias, Guadalupe. Thank you, President Trump. Our next question comes from Arizona, a key state in the upcoming election. José Saralegui lives right on the border with Mexico. José Saralegui, de la frontera de Sonora y Arizona. Una pregunta para el presidente Trump. Adelante.
Thank you.
Soy un republicano, registrado republicano, pero en este momento me encuentro indeciso.
Good evening, Mr. President. I am a Republican. I am a registered Republican, but at this time I am undecided.
Durante la campaña se han utilizado muchas teorías de conspiración.
During the campaign, there has been some conspiracy theories in use.
Le doy un ejemplo, si me permite.
If you allow me, I would like to give an example of it.
Las autoridades de Springfield, Ohio, han aclarado una y otra vez que los haitianos no se están comiendo los perros ni los gatos de sus gentes.
The authorities in Springfield, Ohio, have more than one time clarified that the Haitians are not eating their cats and their dogs.
Sin embargo, usted les quiere revocar su permiso que tienen para residir legalmente en este país.
Nonetheless, you want to revoke the permit they have to legally reside in this country.
Mi pregunta, con todo respeto, es si usted verdaderamente cree que estas personas se comen las mascotas de la gente.
My question to you very respectfully is, do you really believe that these people are eating the people's pets?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And this was just reported. I was just saying what was reported. That's been reported. And eating other things, too, that they're not supposed to be. But this is, all I do is report. I have not, I was there, I'm going to be there, and we're going to take a look, and I'll give you a full report when I do. But that's been in the newspapers and reported pretty broadly. I will say this as far as Springfield is concerned, because I do know that situation. You have a city of 52,000 people, and they've added almost 30,000 migrants into the city. If you were a person that lived there, if you lived in Springfield, Ohio, and all of a sudden you couldn't get into a hospital, you couldn't get your children into a school, you wouldn't be able to buy groceries, you could no longer pay the rent because the government's paying rent, any of that, if any of that happened, it would be a disaster for you and you wouldn't be happy. We want to make our people safe and secure, and we want to make them happy. But Springfield, Ohio is a perfect example. You have a town, a beautiful little town with no problems. All of a sudden, they have 30 or 32,000 people dropped into the town, most of whom don't speak the language, most of whom don't speak the language at all. And what they're doing is they're looking all over for interpreters. Well, I mean, I think you can't just destroy our country. It's maybe some people disagree with me, but you can't put in a very short period of time 32,000 people into a 50,000 people town and expect things to go well. It's a disaster. It's a total disaster. And the people that live there are, you know, they want to leave, they want to move, because if you read about it or talk to them, people want to move, they want to leave because they've never had anything like this. And we can't let that happen to our towns and our cities and our country. Just can't let it happen. It's not sustainable. I appreciate the question. Thank you. I hope you vote for a Republican.
Gracias, José. Thank you, President Trump. Let's take a quick break again, and we'll be right back. Hacemos una breve pausa y regresamos en este encuentro histórico entre votantes latinos y el expresidente Donald Trump.
Los latinos preguntan, Donald Trump responde.
Gracias por seguir en esta conversación con el expresidente Trump y nuestra audiencia. Como saben, los temas que hemos tocado, empleo, salud, migración. Ramiro González es de Tampa y tiene una pregunta para el expresidente Trump. Ramiro González lives here in Florida, in Tampa. As you know, Florida got hit with 2 major hurricanes in the last 2 weeks. Por favor, Ramiro.
Buenas noches, señor Trump. Good evening, Mr. Trump. I am a Republican, no longer registered, though. I want to give you the opportunity to try to win back my vote. Okay. Your, I'd say, action and maybe inaction during your presidency and the last few years sort of, was a little disturbing to me. What happened during January 6th and the fact that, you waited so long to take action while your supporters were attacking the Capitol. Coronavirus, I thought the public was misled during coronavirus, and that many more lives could have been saved if we would have been informed better. And also people in your administration who don't support you. I'm curious how people so close to you and your administration no longer want to support you, so why would I want to support you? If you would answer these questions for me, I would really appreciate it and give you the opportunity. There's, your own vice president doesn't want to support you now.
Thank you, Ramiro.
So the people that don't support a very small portion. We have a tremendous, about 97% of the people in the administration support me. But because it's me, somebody doesn't support, they get a little publicity. The vice president, I disagree with him on what he did. I totally disagreed with him on what he did. Very importantly, you had hundreds of thousands of people come to Washington. They didn't come because of me. They came because of the election. They thought the election was a rigged election, and that's why they came. Some of those people went down to the Capitol. I said, peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have guns. The others had guns, but we didn't have guns. And when I say we, these are people that walked down. This was a tiny percentage of the overall, which nobody sees and nobody shows. But that was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds of thousands. It could have been the largest group I've ever spoken before. They asked me to speak. I went and I spoke. And I used the term peacefully and patriotically. If you look at the Democrats, what they say, you look at Maxine Waters and you look at Hillary Clinton and you look at what they say, and they don't put that on. They only put Republicans on. But they couldn't get me because of the fact that I said everything's got to be peaceful and patriotic. And we'll see how it all works out. But I think that we're right now in another election. All I want is honest elections. I'm willing to take any chance. I want honest elections. We need borders and we need honest elections. And if we don't have either of those two things, that's it. We have tremendous loyalty to the Trump administration. Biden, when he lost in Afghanistan, when he looked so bad, that's why Putin went into Ukraine, in my opinion. He looked and he saw. He should have fired every general involved in that. There was a disaster. He should have fired a lot of people because he had the most unsuccessful administration in the history of our country. A disaster, acknowledged. I, again, had the best economy we've ever had. I rebuilt our military. I defeated ISIS. I did things that nobody thought. In terms of medical right to try, I got right to try where you could use space age, things that wouldn't be approved for another 5 or 10 years. You were able to use it, and we saved thousands and thousands of lives. But 97% of the people in my administration supported me. When you fire somebody, they say bad things. When I fire a John Bolton or when I fire any of these people, he was terrible. But when I fire people, they go out and say, if I didn't fire people, they wouldn't say it. But you know what? Biden should have fired a lot of people because he had a very unsuccessful administration. And the first thing the person he should have fired is his vice president because she's absolutely terrible. And I will tell you, she's in any way fit to be the president of the United States. In fact, she turned on him and they had a coup. They took it over from a president that got 14 million votes. I'm no fan of his, but he got 14 million votes. He won the primary. She was out of the primary. She was the first one to quit. and she left 22 people. She was the first one out. She never made it to Iowa. And then she comes back, and they do a coup. They take it over from him. So that's the way it is. When people don't do their job, I fire them. And if they say bad things about me, that's okay. But overall, look, we're leading in the polls now. We have an election going on right now. I'm doing really well with Hispanics, and we're doing well pretty much with every group. When people don't do a job, I'm sorry, I get rid of them. And if they want to say bad things, I've never fired somebody that said wonderful things. Sometimes they think about it. But when you let somebody go, even for cause, and I only do for cause, they don't generally say great things. But Biden, never think of it. Into the worst administration in the history of our country, he never fired one person, and that's disgraceful. And you look at the border has been a disaster. All they had to do is leave my border. I had the safest, most secure border, and people came in legally. I had the safest border in the history of our country. All he had to do is leave our people and leave our policies. I had a remain in Mexico policy, worked out with the Mexican government. The head of Mexico, all of them, they were my friends. They were good. They were great people. It wasn't easy to work it out, but I worked it out. Remain in Mexico. It was an unbelievable success. Remain in Mexico. We check you out, and then we bring you into the country if you check out. Biden didn't do that. He got rid of everything. He had an open border policy where the whole world flowed in. Unfortunately, the world were prison populations. If I were running a country, any country, and I heard that the U.S. had an open border policy, the first thing I do is open up my jails, take all of my prisoners, and let them out, murderers and everyone else. And that's essentially what they did, and it's a shame. So we had the most successful country we've ever had, and I hope someday maybe we'll get your vote. Sounds like maybe I won't, but that's okay too. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Ramiro. Thank you so much. Jesus Gonzalez, he's the son of immigrants, the first U.S.-born member of his family as well, el primer miembro de tu familia en nacer aquí en Estados Unidos, hijo de inmigrantes. Adelante con tu pregunta, Jesús.
Good evening, President Trump.
Thank you.
With respect, could you explain your gun control policy to the parents of the victims of school shootings?
I could. We have a Second Amendment and right to bear arms, essentially. And I'm very strongly an advocate of that. I think you need that. I think that if you ever tried to get rid of it, you wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't be able to take away the guns because people need that for security. They need it for entertainment and for sport and other things. But they also, in many cases, need it for protection. If you have a house out in the country or you're in a little bit of a rough area or in a very rough area, and the bad guy, let's call him, has a gun. If you don't have a gun, you're finished. You have no chance. So you need them. You want to have a lot of good people have them. But if we didn't have that, you would see a crime rate that's crazy. I'll tell you, though, it's a very interesting stat. The toughest gun laws in the United States, by far, are Chicago. And that's got one of the worst records of any city. And a lot of them are shot. 17 people died on Labor Day. 17 people died Labor Day weekend in Chicago. It's got laws that are so tough. They want to do everything. They can do anything they want. You have a gun. There's no place, maybe on earth, that has a tougher gun policy than Chicago. No, there's no place that has. And they have the right to do anything they want to you. You know what happens? It's probably the worst place right now, one of the most unsafe places anywhere in this country, maybe anywhere in the world. So it's not just that. You have to remember this, it's the person pulling the trigger. It's not the gun, it's the person pulling the trigger. But if you ever passed something, she wants to take everybody's gun away. You know, she's always wanted that. That's because it's what she wants. She wants to take everybody's gun. You know who the ones that will never give their guns up? The bad guy. The bad guy's not giving up the gun. So that's what we have. We want safety, we want security, but you have to still adhere to the Second Amendment. Thank you. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, President Trump. Our next question comes from Carlos Aguilera. He's a veteran of the construction sector here in South Florida. He says he's seen an environmental crisis grow before his eyes. Carlos Aguilera, veterano del sector de construcción. Tu pregunta, por favor, Carlos.
Yep. Good evening, Mr. President. For 30 years, I've been working in the construction industry and building water plants in Florida. I've seen with my own eyes the devastating impacts of climate change. Things that include sea level rise, saltwater intrusion in our drinking water supply, frequent flooding of our coastal communities. Given the amount of the mounting evidence of climate change, do you still believe it's a hoax?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, I built, Okeechobee Dam, and I did so much for Florida in terms of when I was president, and even as a private person, I built a lot. But I did the Okeechobee Dam, which solved a big problem from the climate standpoint. What I do think is this, we can't destroy our country over being forced to do things. They want to do I call it the Green New Deal. They call it the Green New Deal. Some people call it the Green New Hoax. They want to spend $93 trillion on the climate. Now, I happen to think that there are very important elements of climate, water and air. In my administration, I had the cleanest air on record, and yet I didn't destroy jobs. I had the most jobs of any administration ever. I also had the cleanest water, crystal clean. We had the cleanest water, the cleanest air. To me, those are the primary factors. Clean water, clean air. We went into rural parts of the country and fixed people's water. They were drinking such terrible water. It was very important to me. All of that's important. At the same time, you can't give up your country. You can't say that we're not going to have any jobs anymore. If they took their ultimate, which is $93 trillion, the Green New Deal, $93 trillion, that's more money than we would have in 20 years. We wouldn't be able to survive. We wouldn't be able to live. So I always feel that with the climate, and I have been an environmentalist. I built many things. I owned Doral right next door, and we did that in a very I got awards, environmental awards for the way I build it, for the water, the way I use the water, the sand, the mixing of the sand and the water. I mean, many different, but I've had many awards over the years for environmental, the way I've built, because you know about building. That's what you do. It's very important to me. At the same time, we can't destroy our country. And we're competing against countries that don't spend anything on climate change, like China and others. And they're able to make their product for tremendously less than us. And we're not going to let that happen either. We have to have a strong country, and we have to have a nice climate. And there's nobody better at that, I think, at that combination than me. I will say this, though. I hear a lot about climate, and they talk about global warming, et cetera, because they now used to call it global warming. Now they call it climate change because that covers everything. But global warming. The real global warming that we have to worry about is nuclear. The water's coming up 1/8 of an inch over 300 years. The ocean is going to rise, and nobody knows if that's true or not. But they're worried about the ocean rising 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch in 300 years. What I'm worried about is nuclear weapons tomorrow, because the power of nuclear weapons, and we're going to end up with this administration, if she gets in, we will end up in a third world war. She's grossly incompetent, and if she gets in, Kamala, if she gets in, we're going to end up in a third world war. And with me, you'll never end up in even a war. So we have to be very careful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, President Trump. It's time to take our last commercial break. Tomamos una pausa y regresamos en este encuentro con el expresidente Donald Trump.
Los latinos preguntan, Donald Trump responde.
Ya estamos de regreso en este encuentro histórico con el expresidente Donald Trump y votantes latinos. We are back. Our next question comes from Yaritzia Kyun. She's a homemaker and has a question about women's reproductive rights. Yaritzia Kyun se dedica al hogar y tiene una pregunta sobre salud reproductiva. Adelante, Yaritzia.
Buenas noches, señor presidente. Su esposa Melania dijo recientemente que apoyaba los derechos reproductivos de las mujeres y que pudieran practicarse un aborto.
Good evening, Mr. Trump, President. Recently, your wife, Melania, said that she supported women's rights of reproduction along with being able to get an abortion.
Mi pregunta es si usted está de acuerdo con ella.
My question is, do you agree with her?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I told Melania that she has to go with her heart and she has to do what she has to do. She has to support what she wants to support. And she wrote a great book. It's a #1 bestseller. I hope you all go out and buy it. It's really a great book. But I want her to do what she wants to do. I wouldn't want to impose what I think. What has happened is over the last 52 years, people have wanted to get Roe v. Wade out of the federal government. And they've been trying. Every lawyer, every legal scholar, Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, everybody wanted it out. It shouldn't be in the federal government. They wanted it out for many different reasons, all of them very good reasons. And I was able to do that. And with the courage of 6 great Supreme Court justices who are brilliant and courageous, because this issue has torn our country apart. For 52 years, it's torn our country apart. And if something wasn't done, it would have continued and maybe gotten worse. And I was able to do that. And I, like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for life of the mother, rape, and incest. So I believe in exceptions. Most people do. Most Republicans do. There are some that probably don't. Of course, that number has gotten a lot larger with the years. And what they wanted, what people wanted, is for it to go back to the states and a vote of the people. It's going back to the states and a vote of the people. It's out of the federal government now, which is so good. And now, if you look, the states are voting on it. And some states, like Ohio, a state that I won by a lot, took a very liberal stance. They have a very liberal stance. Same thing with Kansas and other states. And some states took a tougher stance. But what it is it's now the vote of the people within the states. This is what everybody has wanted for 52 years. They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade and let it come back to the states. And I've done that, and now the people are voting on it. And you're going to see it's going to heal. It will never heal. It would have never healed if it stayed in Congress, if it stayed in the federal government. It's now in the states. The people are voting as we speak. The people are voting. Some states have completed, like Kansas, Ohio, and a lot of others. But it's going to settle a problem that was only going to get more divisive and worse. It was a big, big dispute for a long period of time. And I think the question is great, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gracias, Yaritza. Thank you, President Trump. Our next question comes also from Arizona. Carlos Garcia was part of our town hall last week with Vice President Harris. Carlos Garcia participó, hizo una pregunta en el encuentro con la vicepresidenta Harris. Adelante, Carlos.
Buenas noches, señor presidente. Es un honor estar aquí en esta noche. Gracias por contestar nuestras preguntas.
Good evening, Mr. President. Thank you for being here tonight with us, and thank you for answering my questions.
Aparte de ser analista de datos, también soy pastor de jóvenes en mi iglesia local.
Besides being a data analyst, I am a pastor for the youth in my local church.
Así que creo en el poder de la reflexión y del crecimiento a través del aprendizaje.
So I believe in the power of growth through reflection and learning.
Todos tenemos triunfos y también tenemos errores. Entonces mi pregunta es,
we can always have triumphs, but we can always also have mistakes. My question to you is,
de sus 4 años en la Casa Blanca, ¿cuál fue algún error o aprendizaje?
Out of the 4 years you were in the White House, can you name one error or something you learned?
De esos 4 años, para que nosotros podamos aprender de usted y darle nuestro voto otra vez.
During those 4 years, so we may learn from you and once more give you our vote.
Thank you very much. We had a very successful administration. Everybody acknowledges it because we had the great economy, which is so important. We didn't have inflation. We won the war. We rebuilt the military. We won the ISIS. And we didn't, the nice part is, we didn't get into any wars. As a pastor, as somebody of faith, you have to like that. Hasn't happened in 82 years that happened with a president. I didn't get into war. We had great trade policies. We changed some of the horrible policies. We did a lot of good things. So when you say about something I regretted, the thing I would say that's most important, and it's going to be most important for coming up, is people. It's all about the people. Where I had great people, things happened good. Where I had people that I didn't like as much, it doesn't work out as well. And I, unlike Biden or Harris, I get rid of them. I get new people in because I'm working for you. I want to make sure the country is running well. And if somebody's not doing their job, I make changes. So I would say this, the mistakes I made weren't big policy. We had the strong border. We had the great economy. We had all these things. But I put some people in that I wouldn't have used again. Now, when I went to Washington, as you know, I was only there 17 times in my entire life. 17 times. I never stayed over. The press informed me of that, so I don't know if it's true, but it sounds like it might be right. Very little. I wasn't in Washington. So I didn't know the people very well, and I relied on other people to give me. And generally speaking, I got it right. Bob Lighthizer in trade. We had great trade people. We had a lot of great people. But I had some people that I would not have used again. Now I have tremendous experience. I think I have more experience than anybody in history in terms of the people, in terms of that kind of experience, the experience you need. And I know all of the people. I know the players. I know the good ones, the bad ones, the smart ones, the dumb ones, the ones that don't have courage. You think you never really know about courage until you test it. But I know the people very well. I know who I want, who I don't want. So I would say that in terms of knowledge and learning, it was people. If you have a good group of people or a great, like secretary, somebody in charge of a big agency, it's all about the people. So I would say that would be the biggest mistake. Mostly good, but some bad.
Muchas gracias. Gracias, Carlos. President Trump, we have time for a couple of more questions.
Well, it's okay. You know, they said, would you like to sit down?
Yes.
I said, that is the most uncomfortable looking chair I've ever seen. I'm looking at that chair. I said, I don't think anybody could sit in that chair. No.
I didn't get one.
Let's go do a couple of more. Fine.
Wonderful. Eloy Contreras, he's a security guard at a hospital. Eloy Contreras es un guardia de seguridad en un hospital. Tu pregunta para el expresidente Trump.
Good evening, President Trump. Thank you for being here and taking these questions. When you left office, Mr. President, we were a divided nation. Instead of the United States of America, we were the divided States of America. Win or lose, if the American people to send you back to the White House or not, what specific steps will you take to unite a deeply divided nation?
So when I left office, we had an election that was in dispute by most people, I think, but certainly a vast majority of people. That was the primary division, and that was a shame. That was a shame because that should never happen with a country. And it's really too bad that it did happen. But we are much more of a divided nation now than we ever were then. And I will tell you this, that when we had the economy blazing, the best economy we've ever had, liberals, radical left people, as I would call them, Democrats were calling me. Our country was coming together. Then we got hit with a gift from China called COVID, and we had to fight that. But for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, we were the most united. People wanted to get together. They wanted to be people that I never thought would want to be meeting and were asking to have lunch, have dinner. Our country was coming together. And the thing that will bring our country together is success. It was coming together because it was so successful. Everybody, Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, everybody had jobs. Women, men, people with high school diplomas, people without high school diplomas, people from the best colleges in the world, from MIT and Harvard, the Wharton School of Finance, from Stanford, and people with no education. Everybody was doing better than they'd ever done. Everybody, every group. Every group. And you know who was doing the best? Proportionately were low-income people. And that's a statistical fact. Everybody was doing better. There was no division. Success will bring our country together. And I never knew that I'd say that. I thought that even if you were successful, because the views are so different on so many things. For instance, the Democrats want men to play in women's sports. I don't like that. I don't know if they're going to change, but I don't think I could ever change. I see the differences. I don't understand how they could want it. They want transgender operations, change a man into a woman, and in some cases, a boy into a woman without parental consent. I'm not going to go for that. So I don't know. I never thought you could come together, but I will say this. Success will bring this country together. Thank you. Good question.
Thank you. Our last question. Last week, Teresa Yedro had the opportunity to ask the last question on our town hall. Teresa tuvo la oportunidad de hacer la última pregunta la semana pasada. Nuevamente, adelante.
President Trump, buenas noches.
Thank you.
Se me hace justo hacerle exactamente la misma pregunta que le hice a la candidata demócrata.
Good evening, Mr. President. I only think it's fair to ask the same question I posed the Democrat candidate.
¿Cuáles son las 3 virtudes que usted reconoce en la vicepresidenta Kamala Harris?
What are the 3 virtues that you see in Vice President Kamala Harris?
That's a very hard question. That's the toughest question. The other ones are easy. Look, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I think she's harmed our country horribly, horribly, at the border, with inflation, with so many other things. But she seems to have an ability to survive. She seemed, because, you know, she was out of the race and all of a sudden she's running for president. That's a great ability that some people have and some people don't have. She seems to have some pretty long-time friendships, and that's, you know, also, that's, I don't call that an ability. I call that a good thing. And she seems to have a nice way about her. I mean, I like the way, you know, some of her statements, some of her, the way she behaves in a certain way. But in another way, I think it's very bad for our country, very bad for our country. But she does seem to have some relationships that be lasting. And she does seem to be a survivor. Because remember, she was the first one out, and all of a sudden she's running for president. And the other 21 people that are running, they're sitting home watching her on television, right? So that's by far the toughest question I've had today. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your answer.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, President Trump. We've reached the end of our historic conversation. Thanks again for being here with us and answering the questions of Latino voters.
Thank you all very much. It's been an honor. Go out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Nos despedimos, gracias por acompañarnos, los esperamos mañana en punto de las 7 de la noche a través de la señal de Univisión para un programa después de los encuentros públicos, de los foros con los 2 candidatos. Soy Enrique Acevedo. A nombre del equipo de Televisa Univisión, gracias por acompañarnos. Thank you again, sir. Thank you.
Elecciones Estados Unidos.